The conversation ended 20 minutes ago, but your answer is still growing. You are holding your phone, rewriting a message that began with 3 honest sentences and has become 12 paragraphs. You are explaining what happened, why it hurt, what you meant, what they misunderstood, and why any reasonable person should finally see your side. Part of you wants clarity, part of you wants an apology, and part of you wants your silence to hurt them. You want them to notice the absence, to feel the closed door, to wonder why you are no longer available. You imagine them replaying the moment, realizing what they lost, and returning with the respect they should have shown the first time. That fantasy feels like control. But notice where your attention still is. It is still with them. You may not be speaking, but you are listening for their reaction. You may not be chasing, but you are waiting to be chased. You may not be explaining, but you are rehearsing the explanation in your mind. This is why silence after disrespect is more complicated than it appears. Silence can be self-command. Silence can be a clean ending. Silence can be a boundary that changes access. But silence can also be fear, punishment, avoidance, or a performance designed to control someone from a distance. The outside can look exactly the same. No message, no call, no argument. The difference is the purpose. Stoicism does not ask you to become mute, cold, or impossible to reach. It asks you to act from judgment instead of injury. Sometimes judgment tells you to wait. Sometimes it tells you to speak one clear sentence. Sometimes it tells you to document what happened. Sometimes it tells you to repair. And sometimes it tells you to stop returning to a door that has already shown you what waits behind it. This video is about 3 different silences. The silence that gives you time, the silence that ends an exhausted loop, and the silence that reduces access after a repeated pattern. We will also examine the moments when silence is not wisdom, when safety, truth, justice, responsibility, or a relationship worth repairing requires words and action. Because the goal is not to make the other person suffer. The goal is to stop allowing their conduct to decide the quality of yours. Before you send the message, before you announce your absence, before you call withdrawal a boundary, ask a harder question. What is this silence for? Imagine 3 people who all leave a disrespectful conversation without another word. The first person leaves because his anger is moving too quickly. He knows that if he stays, he will say something cruel and spend tomorrow repairing what he says tonight. He leaves, steadies himself, writes down what happened, and decides to return to the issue when he can speak clearly. That is a pause. The second person has already explained the issue once. He has named the behavior, asked for a respectful conversation, and listened to the answer. The other person keeps twisting the subject, repeating the insult, and demanding that he prove his right to have a boundary. He ends the exchange and does not reopen it. That is closure. The third person has seen the same pattern for months. Private information becomes entertainment. Every disagreement becomes contempt. Every limit becomes a new accusation. He does not announce a dramatic disappearance. He simply changes access. Fewer calls, less private information, no immediate availability, a smaller role in his life. That is distance. From the outside, all 3 people became quiet, but they were solving different problems. The pause protects judgment. Closure protects attention. Distance protects the conditions of your life. Confusion begins when you use the wrong silence for the wrong problem. If you use distance when the situation needed one honest conversation, you may abandon repair. If you use a pause but never return to a necessary issue, delay becomes avoidance. If you keep explaining after the issue is clear, a conversation becomes a courtroom in which the other person is judge, jury, and owner of your identity. And if you withdraw only to make someone anxious, the silence is not freedom. It is an argument performed without words. The Stoic question is not, what will make me look powerful? It is, what action is appropriate to the facts, my values, and my responsibilities? That question is quieter than pride. It is also more demanding. Pride likes universal rules. Never answer. Always walk away. Make them feel your absence. Real judgment is less dramatic. It asks whether the event is isolated or repeated, whether a fact needs correction, whether a person is capable of repair, whether your silence protects someone vulnerable or leaves them alone, whether you are leaving because the conversation is finished or because you are afraid to say what is true. Self-respect is not one pose. It is the willingness to choose the right form of courage for the moment. Sometimes courage waits. Sometimes courage speaks. Sometimes courage ends the conversation. And sometimes courage changes the relationship. The first silence is the shortest. It may last one breath, 10 minutes, one evening, or until the next morning. Its purpose is not to punish anyone. Its purpose is to keep the first injury from writing the final answer. Epictetus addresses provocation directly in chapter 20 of the Enchiridion. In one public domain translation, the passage ends with this sentence: "For if you once gain time and respite, you will more easily command yourself." Gain time and respite. That is the first practice. Not because the disrespect is imaginary, not because every interpretation is wrong, not because a calm person must accept anything. Time matters because the first version of your answer is often designed for emotional rescue, not wise action. You feel humiliated, so the answer tries to restore status. You feel misunderstood, so the answer tries to explain everything. You feel rejected, so the answer tries to create guilt. You feel powerless, so the answer tries to seize control. The message may sound intelligent, it may contain accurate facts, but its hidden purpose is often make this feeling stop by making the other person respond correctly. That is a dangerous contract. You are placing your relief inside someone else's next decision. The first silence interrupts that contract. Suppose a friend makes a private joke about you in front of others. The room laughs. You feel the heat before you know what to say. Your first draft is an attack. Your second draft is a defense. Your third draft explains your entire history with this friend. Do not choose among the three drafts yet. Put your feet on the floor. Let one breath finish before you begin a sentence. Name the event without reading the person's mind. He turned private information into a joke after I trusted him with it. Name the first urge. I want to embarrass him back. Then ask, what needs protection now? Maybe the answer is the dignity of the room. You say, that was private. Do not use it as a joke. Maybe the answer is your ability to speak without contempt. You say, I am too angry to discuss this well. I am leaving and we will address it later. Maybe the answer is simply your attention. You do not feed the performance and you speak privately afterward. The first silence does not determine the final response. It creates the conditions in which a final response can be chosen. This matters in written communication even more. A message creates the illusion that you must answer because the words are waiting on the screen. But a message is not an alarm. You are allowed to read it once, step away, and decide whether an answer is needed. Use a simple rule. Do not send from the peak of the urge. Draft if you need to. Do not send. Write the facts in a separate note. Remove every sentence whose only purpose is to force the other person to admit your worth. Then return when the message can perform one clear function. Correct a fact, state a boundary, request a specific action, arrange a necessary conversation, or close the exchange. If it performs none of those functions, it may be an emotional invoice, and the person who disrespected you may not be willing or able to pay it. Time is useful only if you use it to see more clearly. Before deciding whether to speak or remain quiet, classify the event. The first category is careless friction. A tired person uses a poor tone. A friend interrupts. A stranger is impatient. The moment is unpleasant, but there is no meaningful pattern, false record, or serious consequence. Not every rough edge requires a hearing. You can let ordinary human imperfection pass without making yourself small. The second category is unclear disrespect. The words landed badly, but intent and meaning are uncertain. You may have incomplete context. A short question is stronger than a long accusation. What did you mean by that? Are you criticizing the decision or me personally? Can you say the concern directly? Here, immediate silence may become a pause followed by clarification. The third category is open provocation. The person is not trying to resolve the subject. They are trying to recruit your reaction. They repeat loaded words, mock every answer, move the standard, or perform for an audience. Provocation uses your urgency as fuel. This is where closure becomes important. You may say one sentence, then stop. I will discuss the issue. I will not trade insults. This conversation is no longer productive. I am ending it. If you have a specific concern, send it clearly. The fourth category is a repeated pattern. This is no longer about one sentence. It is about the conditions around the relationship. Private information is repeatedly exposed. Contempt replaces disagreement. Boundaries are acknowledged and then ignored. Your time is treated as permanently available. Every apology resets the clock without changing the behavior. A pattern is not solved by winning one exchange. It is solved by changing access, expectations, consequences, or proximity. The fifth category is serious harm or responsibility. Threats, stalking, coercion, violence, abuse, harassment, discrimination, retaliation, or false professional claims are not opportunities to demonstrate how quietly you can suffer. Seek safety, preserve evidence, use formal reporting, contact trusted people or appropriate professional and emergency resources when needed. Silence is not automatically virtuous. The Stoic virtues include justice and courage. A quiet appearance does not excuse abandoning either one. There is one more question beneath every category. What belongs to you? The other person's opinion does not belong to you. Your attempt to control their private thoughts does not belong to you. But your words, your record, your availability, your follow-through, and the environments you continue entering do belong to your field of action. You may not control the outcome. You can still choose the next responsible move. Some people use silence because they are exhausted by over-explaining. That exhaustion is real. But the alternative to a 12-paragraph defense is not always permanent silence. Often it is one clean sentence. A clean sentence does not prove your entire character. It names the fact, the boundary, or the next action. That information was private. Do not share it again. I am willing to discuss the mistake. I am not willing to be insulted. That statement is inaccurate. Here is the record. I need time before I answer. We can continue when the conversation is respectful. No. The power is not in sounding cold. The power is in refusing to make the sentence carry work it cannot perform. No sentence can force honesty into someone committed to distortion. No explanation can guarantee respect. No perfect wording can remove all disagreement. A clean sentence performs your responsibility and leaves the other person's response with them. Consider a workplace example. A colleague writes in a group message that you failed to deliver something you were never assigned. Staying silent may protect you from an argument, but it may also leave a false record. Do not send a wounded essay. Write, "For clarity, this task was assigned to the operations team in the June 8th meeting. I have attached the notes. I can help with the next step if ownership has changed." That answer is not aggressive. It is not passive. It protects truth without converting the message into a trial of personalities. Now consider a personal relationship. Someone mocks you every time you raise a concern, then says you are too sensitive when you object. A clean sentence might be, "When my concern is mocked, I will end the conversation. We can try again later." The sentence is only the beginning. The boundary becomes real when you follow it. If the mockery continues, end the conversation. Do not add 5 new speeches while remaining in the same conditions. This is where many people confuse expression with action. They believe that if the words were stronger, the boundary would finally work. But a boundary is not measured by the intensity of its announcement. It is measured by the consistency of your next move, one clean sentence, one proportionate action. Then silence can become an ending instead of another method of persuasion. The second silence begins after clarity has already been offered. You have answered the question. You have corrected the fact. You have named the boundary. You have invited a respectful conversation. The other person does not engage with any of it. They repeat the accusation. They change the subject. They demand a new explanation for the explanation. They interpret your calm as proof that you do not care, and your emotion as proof that you are unstable. At this point, more language may not create more clarity. It may only create more material to twist. The second silence ends the loop. This is not the silent treatment. The silent treatment withholds communication to create anxiety, compliance, or punishment inside an ongoing relationship. It keeps the other person guessing because the uncertainty is the mechanism. Closure is different. Closure communicates the decision and stops extending a conversation that has lost its honest purpose. I have answered this. I am not continuing the exchange. My position is clear. We can revisit it if the conversation becomes respectful. There is nothing useful to add. Then stop. Do not send a final message after the final message. Do not check whether your absence is working. Do not reopen the conversation because their lack of understanding feels intolerable. You are allowed to be misunderstood after you have spoken truthfully. That sentence is difficult for anyone who built safety through explanation. You may believe that misunderstanding is a problem you are morally required to solve. If someone thinks you are selfish, cold, dramatic, or ungrateful, you feel compelled to correct the image. But there is a point at which correcting the image costs more integrity than allowing the misunderstanding. Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations 11:18, repeatedly returns to judgment, the additional harm caused by anger and genuine gentleness that does not perform for an audience. The passage does not ask you to become passive. It asks you to stop multiplying the injury through your own conduct. An endless explanation can be one form of multiplication. The original disrespect hurt once. The argument about whether it was disrespectful hurts again. The attempt to control every witness hurts again. The rehearsal of the perfect final statement hurts again. Ending the loop means refusing to pay for the same event through unlimited attention. You have not won control over the other person's mind. You have stopped treating that control as your assignment. The third silence is not measured in minutes. It changes the structure of the relationship. It appears after a pattern has become clear and words alone have not changed the conditions. Reduced access can mean fewer conversations, less personal information, slower availability, no private meetings, a different work process, ending a recurring invitation, blocking an account, or leaving a relationship entirely. The specific action depends on the context and seriousness. The principle is simple. Access is not an entitlement. Your time, attention, trust, and private life are not public property. But reduced access must not become a secret test. If you disappear hoping the person will chase you, apologize, or prove your value, you have not reduced their emotional access. You have built your next emotional state around their response. Distance becomes clean when it is chosen because the present conditions are unacceptable, not because you need the other person to react correctly to the distance. Suppose a relative repeatedly turns your private struggles into family conversation. You have addressed it. They apologize, then do it again. Reduced access may mean they no longer receive private information. You do not need a dramatic announcement. You may say, "I am keeping that part of my life private." Then you keep it private. Suppose a friend contacts you only when they need labor, money, attention, or rescue, and becomes contemptuous when you are unavailable. Reduced access may mean you stop answering immediately, stop taking responsibility for preventable crises, and decline requests you do not freely choose. You do not need to call them a user. You need to change your participation. Suppose a professional relationship contains repeated disrespect. Reduced access may require more structure, not disappearance, written communication, agendas, witnesses, formal reporting, or reassignment. Silence without documentation could make the problem harder to address. Distance must serve reality. This is why the third silence is not one aesthetic gesture. It is a practical change in what the person can repeatedly reach. And it may bring grief. You can know a relationship is unhealthy and still miss what you hoped it would become. You can reduce access and still feel guilt. You can leave and still wish the person had chosen differently. Stoic practice does not demand that consequences feel effortless. It asks whether the action serves reason, courage, justice, and self-command, even while feeling difficult. You do not need to hate someone to stop giving them the same access. You do not need to make them a villain to admit that the pattern is no longer acceptable. You do not need their agreement to change your availability. There is a simple test for whether your silence is becoming a game. Ask what result you are watching for. Are you checking whether they viewed your story? Are you counting how long it takes them to message? Are you posting indirect statements so they will understand what your silence is supposed to mean? Are you asking mutual friends whether the person noticed your absence? Are you imagining the exact apology that will prove the strategy worked? If so, your body may be absent while your attention remains in the room. The goal is not to shame yourself for this. The urge is understandable. Disrespect often creates a painful loss of agency. You want evidence that the person can finally feel what you felt, but their pain cannot restore your dignity. Their regret cannot become the foundation of your peace. Their pursuit cannot prove that the relationship is now safe. Silence without games removes the hidden demand. You are not saying, "I will disappear until you value me." You are saying, "I will act according to what the pattern has shown, whether or not you approve." That change is quiet but profound. It returns the purpose of your action to your own character. You may still hope for repair. You may still be open to a sincere conversation. But openness is not the same as waiting at the window. If the person returns, evaluate behavior, not intensity. A dramatic apology may feel powerful. Look for specificity, responsibility, repair, and consistency. Do they name what they did without turning immediately to your faults? Do they understand the consequence? Do they accept the boundary without bargaining? Does the behavior change after the emotion of the apology has passed? Silence creates room to observe. It does not require you to reward every return. And if no return comes, the silence still has value if it protected you from another cycle of pleading, retaliation, and self-abandonment. The action was not a trap. It was a decision. Not every quiet person is acting wisely. Sometimes silence protects peace. Sometimes it protects fear. You know there is a necessary conversation, but you call avoidance detachment. You know a false claim needs correction, but you call passivity dignity. You know someone vulnerable is being mistreated, but you remain neutral because conflict would be uncomfortable. You know your own behavior caused harm, but you withdraw instead of apologizing. Silence does not erase responsibility. There are at least 4 situations where speech or action may be required. First, safety and serious misconduct. Threats, abuse, harassment, discrimination, coercion, violence, stalking, and retaliation require protection, documentation, support, or formal intervention. Do not turn danger into a private test of endurance. Second, a material false record. If silence allows inaccurate information to affect work, reputation, finances, custody, safety, or another serious interest, respond with facts and preserve evidence. Calm documentation is not reactivity. Third, responsibility for your own conduct. If you acted unfairly, silence may become an escape from accountability. A Stoic response includes examining your part. I was right about the issue, but I spoke with contempt. I ended the conversation without explaining that I needed time. I used distance to punish instead of setting a boundary. An honest apology does not require surrendering every fact. It requires taking ownership of what is yours. Fourth, a relationship capable of repair. Some conflicts continue because both people are afraid of the conversation. If there is mutual goodwill, enough safety, and a real possibility of change, silence may protect the problem instead of protecting peace. You may need to say, "I left because I was hurt and angry. I want to discuss what happened without attacking each other." That sentence is not weakness, it is courage without theater. The test is not whether speaking feels comfortable. The test is whether silence would abandon truth, justice, repair, or responsibility. Calm is not the absence of words. Calm is the condition in which words and silence can both serve what matters. Even after you choose the right response, the conversation may continue in your mind. You replay the tone. You revise your sentence. You imagine witnesses finally understanding. You predict the next message. The mouth is quiet. The courtroom remains open. Protecting peace requires an ending inside you as well. Begin with a factual record if the event matters. Write what happened, when it happened, who was present, what was said as accurately as you can, and what action you took. Documentation has a purpose and an end. Rumination keeps changing the evidence to intensify the feeling. Next, choose the remaining action. Do you need to send one factual message, schedule a conversation, report a pattern, change access, apologize for your part, or do nothing further? Choose the action and place it somewhere real, on a calendar, in a note, in an email draft that will be reviewed tomorrow, in a conversation with a trusted person. An undecided mind keeps summoning the conflict because it believes the case is still active. Then identify what you cannot complete. You cannot force the apology. You cannot supervise every opinion. You cannot travel backward and perform the moment perfectly. You cannot make someone understand a boundary they benefit from misunderstanding. Release those jobs. Finally, return to ordinary life. Finish a task, take a walk, prepare food, read something that has nothing to do with the conflict. Speak to someone without retelling the story. This is not denial. It is a practical refusal to let one person's conduct occupy every room of the day. You may need to return your attention more than once. Peace is not always a feeling that arrives. Sometimes it is the decision to stop reopening what has already taught you enough. You do not build useful silence by waiting for the next humiliation. Train the decision when the stakes are lower. For the next 7 days, practice 3 questions. First, what needs protection? Maybe it is your judgment. Maybe it is a fact. Maybe it is a boundary. Maybe it is a relationship worth repairing. Maybe it is safety. Second, what is mine to do? Not what should they finally realize. Not what will make them regret. What action belongs to your side of the situation? Wait. Clarify. Correct. End. Document. Reduce access. Repair. Leave. Third, what response can I respect tomorrow? This question removes the fantasy of a perfect emotional performance. You may still feel hurt tomorrow. You may still dislike the outcome, but will you respect the conduct? Prepare 3 sentences before you need them. For time, I am going to think before I answer. For a boundary, I will discuss the issue, not personal attacks. For closure, I have answered this and I am ending the conversation. Use your own words. The sentences are not spells. They are handles your judgment can reach when injury wants to take over. At the end of each day, review one moment. Did you use silence to gain time, to close a loop, or to avoid courage? Did you say more than the situation required? Did you leave something important unsaid? Did you keep checking for an effect on the other person? What is one adjustment for tomorrow? Do not turn the review into self-punishment. The purpose is to make your choices more visible. Over time, you will recognize the difference sooner. You will feel the urge to send the paragraph and wait. You will notice when a question can replace an accusation. You will hear the moment when explanation becomes pleading. You will stop announcing boundaries you do not enforce. You will know when distance is grief, not revenge. And you will speak when silence would betray what matters. Return to the message on your screen. Read it once more. Which part states a fact? Which part states a boundary? Which part requests a necessary action? And which part is asking the other person to repair your worth? Keep what serves truth. Keep what serves responsibility. Keep what serves a clear next step. Remove the emotional invoice. Then decide whether the message should be sent at all. The Stoic response after disrespect is not permanent silence. It is not a frozen face. It is not absence designed to produce fear. It is not the hope that someone else's regret will finally prove your value. It is the ability to use quiet deliberately. First, to gain time. Then, when needed, to end a loop that clarity cannot repair. And when a pattern requires it, to change access without turning distance into a game. Speak when truth, safety, justice, repair, or responsibility requires speech. Be silent when more words would only surrender more attention. You do not need to become cold to protect your peace. You need enough calm to know what the moment is asking of your character. That is the difference between silence that controls another person and silence that returns you to yourself. If this reflection helped you see silence more clearly, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need this reminder.